We're a capacity building intermediary that partners with foundations to support their grantees that are navigating like a whole bunch of different things.
Nonprofit organizations working to achieve social and environmental justice are feeling the brunt of our current political climate and our federal administration's real threats to democracy. State and federal budget cuts to crucial institutions have meant that nonprofits have picked up the slack left behind by our government. Many organizations are navigating a drop in funding resources, staff burnout, and increased attacks on their communities, as everyday people are struggling to pay for their basic needs, protections for trans people continue to be eroded, reproductive rights are hanging by a thread, and families of all kinds are being brutally persecuted by ICE. But not everything is hopeless. Groups like the Leaders Trust are responding to this moment with deep care and investment for social and environmental justice organizations. The Leaders Trust is an intermediary funder that partners with larger foundations to provide wraparound funding and support to organizations promoting social and environmental justice. Unlike larger foundations that may not have their ear to the ground, intermediaries like the Leaders Trust have deep connections to local, social, and environmental justice groups that are in need of funding support. The Leaders Trust provides organizations with grant funds anywhere from $20,000 to $100,000 intended to support an organization's strengthening, often focusing on things like training staff on new skills, creating a long-term strategy for the organization to meet its goals, building human resources infrastructure, executive coaching for directors, or a wellness retreat to sustain staff. Organizations are paired with capacity coaches who guide organizations over 1 to 3 years in creating an organizational development plan. This model has offered over $30 million in organizational strengthening support to over 120 organizations in 20 states. I've been a capacity coach with the Leaders Trust for 5 years and have supported over 20 organizations around the U.S. in my role. The impact of our work is meaningful, especially in this moment. However, on paper, like so much of social and environmental justice work, our work can come off heady, academic, and impersonal. But the way those of us who work at the Leaders Trust are able to create such critical impact is the exact opposite. The internal workings of our organizational culture and how we relate to one another are centered in collective care, generosity, and reciprocity. And Melissa Toala, the program manager at the Leaders Trust, is the embodiment of all of these values. I'm honored to know her as a colleague and a dear friend. She is someone who breathes life, generosity, and care into any space she's a part of. Her way of being represents a kind of ease, intimacy, and trust that make up the relationships required to do our work.
I feel honored to have a warrior spirit, and I feel honored to have this like soft mother, like nurturer. My grandma was the same way, and I've talked about my grandma a bunch of times. She was a short 4'10" Puerto Rican lady who was tough as hell, but super fucking sweet and like the most amazing caretaker, organizer. Before like I even had the words of what those mean in either professional spaces or even movement spaces from a deep, deep, intimate, personal level, my grandma embodied all the things that I learned along the way, like, and wasn't like kind of picking it up until later. So I'm like, yeah, I've been fortunate that from early, I was instilled with, even before I came into this world, in all my past worlds, I've always kind of had these guides. And then in this material world, I got to have my grandma who instilled a lot of things really early before I even knew that this was what I was going to do. I didn't have this idea like, oh, I'm going to be an organizer. I'm going to be this. It kind of just happened because I don't know, when you're born into a system that doesn't want you to win, you keep trying to, amnesia. I'm very stubborn. I'm going to try to figure things out. So being from the Bronx makes me hella stubborn and hella rough and very strong. And also being for the Bronx and being raised by the most amazing Puerto Rican grandmother has also made me very soft and very nurturing. Being a mom myself, I feel like I've learned a lot from my own children. Um yeah, I want to make the world better for them. If anything, like that team. Like I'm like, yes, I'm part of this team of people that like in Eddie in every iteration of life or history or like wherever it was, like we're warrior spirits and we're caretakers. So, so I'm part of that. Therapy for organizations, almost like where, you know, like it's like doing that thing that we would do. Like if I was meeting an individual in crisis, like I would do safety planning with them. We would like literally meet them where they're at and get their like basic needs met and then try to kind of think through like what some like future planning could look like, but really is like meeting folks in their humanity. And so I think like from a social work perspective in these organizations is very similar, but like bigger, right? It's like we're meeting organizations that care for people and families and whole communities in crisis, right? And we're meeting them in that moment, and we are offering them what a lot of us need sometimes in crisis: support, a coach, a person, accompaniment, right? You're not alone, like that reminder that you're not by yourself in having to tackle these things that are systemic um in their movement spaces, right? Like we work with folks that are doing repro, worker rights, education. We have some performing arts groups. I mean, it really is like meeting people where they're at and trying to make their communities better and needing like that extra support, whether that's in resource, like actual resources, in material stuff like money. And then also like the support from like having somebody that um is going to do some sense making with you and some thought partnership. Being a leader is not easy when you're accountable to so many people, and what we find, especially with the grassroots organizations, I'm thinking about our affiliate groups, a lot of these leaders are from the community. They like grew up in these organizations, or they grew up in these spaces that they're now trying to, you know, do different work or be more intentional. So it's like um yeah, it's investing in like the growth and sustainability of whole communities through the supporting of these organizations that exist in them. We want them to continue to exist. Also look at it as care work that we're doing. Care work in philanthropy, which, you know, doesn't sound like it goes together, but it can and it should. And I think that we're trying to also transform how philanthropy is, right? Of like it's not just about giving money to people and then prescribing what they should do with that money, but it's really like trusting them that they know better than us. Like I'm from New York and I'm supporting groups in California. There's no way that I'm going to be able to tell them what they need more than they can, right? I think people have felt held and they felt listened to. They felt seen and valued. When we had a conversation, we were able to have a conversation in Spanish that made people feel like, wow, like important, like you're valuing me. Like I speak English, but I want to speak about this stuff in Spanish. And it's like also just like um just valuing wherever they're at in their languages and in their culture. I think people have felt respected. I hope they feel respected by us. And I feel more, maybe even stronger because they're like not by themselves. You have people here that are like, you have a support in the Leaders Trust and your capacity coach. We're working with the foundation to also continue to figure out like what are the ways that we can continue showing up. So I hope they feel listened to. Try not to forget that beyond me being an employee of an organization that has funders as customers, and we're doing this great, great work, that at the heart of it is people that are navigating a lot of different things. And so being trauma informed and like understanding how trauma lives in bodies, I think then, you know, makes you see the importance of the care that's needed in organizational strengthening work.
I feel like your
realness, your heart, your no tienes pelos en la lengua energy
Mm-hmm.
that you
Mm-hmm.
your the realness that you bring into the work breaks down this awful Zoom space that we have to like work within. And I feel like you help us like be more comfortable being who we are.
And
And
that's why the relationship building is so important. And it takes so much time. Like, I'm like, when we say multi-year, like, so, like, we also like aim that this needs to be multi-year. Like, it's not gonna ever be, like, people need to learn to trust you, and that requires relationship building. That requires time in conversation, talking about the work and also talking about other shit. That's why I say, like, I like to get to know people, and let them get to know me, because then I feel like once I've seen physically seen people's shoulders just drop, like after, like, maybe they're like, oh, I didn't even know this meeting was going to be like this, or I came in thinking blah 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 blah, and and I love that. Like, this is not even just to toot my own horn, but I love that because you don't know how many times, like, I've been. I mean, you've done that for me, where I feel like, oh, this feels like a hug that I needed, or this feels like the safety that I needed to actually just like say what's really on my heart or say what's really on my mind. But people need to feel safe in order to like get there, especially when like they are up against like losing money, right? There's a lot of cuts that are happening. And so now they're like almost competing for scraps, like with like whatever is left is like people are now like, okay, I have to perform differently because now I'm in this like competition or in this grind because the money, like, it's scarce. Um, which is also why I love this. Like, I was reading the Service Berry. Um, love it. And like this gift economy and how looking at like abundance from like a different place, right? Like, not from all the things that you could accumulate and collect, right? But like there is paying attention to those the gifts that we have that are beyond like the money. And I think that they're in organizational strengthening work. It's like, yes, getting people to have those resources that they need, but they're like resources beyond money that communities need, like, as a whole. And it's like understanding like where they already have some of those things as well. Someone who has, like, I mean, you've mentioned it, like all these unique gifts, and they're super generous with them. They're a thought partner, they are care workers, they are strategists, they are like super fucking smart and brilliant and have these lived experiences, some of them as EDs and some of them, doing consulting work, their own practices, also of community, right? Like, I think that the lived experiences that y'all bring on is like vast, right? It's like personal, it's professional, it's like all the things. I think I see them as my friends. The they are a dope community of people really trying to make the world a better place, one organization at a time. They understand the power of collaboration and groupthink and wise counsel. Um, they Yeah, and they're really good at just like helping people pace themselves. I think, like I said, therapist for an organization. And that reciprocity thing, that's where I feel like why I show up the way that I do, because I feel like this is my reciprocity. This is like, we want leaders to show up being vulnerable. We're asking, like, I think things that could be hard given all of the other things that they're navigating. And so I'm like, yes, I'm gonna meet you there as well. And I think the being in that type of relationship is how I show that reciprocity as well, that we can be vulnerable, we could not have all the answers, and we could also figure them out together.
People who work at the Leaders Trust are a community who shares a deep commitment to the liberation and thriving of our world, to the most marginalized peoples among us in the U.S. We are a group of people who create belonging by encouraging one another to bring our whole selves into our work, to share power by consciously uplifting the wisdom that every single one of us brings to the collective in our unique roles. We share similar values around caring for ourselves holistically as individual people in order to show up as quote unquote organizational therapists for others. We break down the virtual space we work within as a remote organization by creating intentional meeting spaces that center collective learning, vulnerability, and witnessing of one another's gifts. We actively practice reflection about the impact of our work, ask for the perspective of the collective during challenging situations, and orient our gatherings around key rituals like engaging in an embodiment practice or asking a meaningful check-in question before our meetings begin. During any given meeting, it is likely to hear the words love, grounded, reciprocity, care, justice, liberation, often spoken in warm tones, sometimes said among tears, that are always welcomed with witnessing and affirmation, which lets all of us know that each one of us belongs, that each one of us shares power in holding the whole of our work, and that each one of our gifts has something to offer our collective purpose.
That there's all these gifts that like collectively we actually are super super powerful, and amazing, and you as an individual don't even have to have it all figured out. Like I say this often about being messy and dope, being soft and strong, right? Like doing like all these things, and like that, that all of it is needed. And I love when people get that aha, that just reminder, like, yo, I don't have to be by myself. I don't have to do this in isolation. This is not part of the work, is to do anything in isolation. It's like we inherited this house. I'm going to make it better than how I found it. And like future generations that come will, like, they're going to have something that they're accountable into this. Like, I don't think that I'm going to see like peak liberation in my lifetime, but I'm happy to be adding to this fight, like while I'm still here.